about what's happening in the news. Devin Archer, he was on the board of Burisma with Hunter Biden.
His best friend.
He was his best friend at the time. He's supposed to testify this week before Congress. We're going to learn more information. But it is being reported by Miranda Devine, who's been all over this story in the New York Post, that Hunter would call his dad on speakerphone when his dad was vice president during the meetings with the foreign business associates of Burisma. Remember, he said, I don't know anything about my son's business engagements. I don't talk to him about work. But apparently they spoke on speakerphone more than 24 times.
Yeah. It's a stunning article by Miranda Devine in the New York Post. Here's the cover of it. It says, phone a friend. Hunter got Joe on speaker to impress clients. The article goes on to say Hunter Biden would dial in his father, then Vice President Joe Biden, on speakerphone into meetings with his overseas business partners, according to testimony expected before Congress this week from Devin Archer, the first son's former best friend. Archer, 48, who is facing jail for his role in $60 million bond fraud, is scheduled to testify to the House Oversight Committee about meetings he witnessed that were attended by Joe Biden either in person or via speakerphone, when Hunter would call his dad and introduce him to foreign business partners or prospective investors. Right. Steve, I mean, the article goes on to say there were moments when it was urgent. We have to get the vice president on the line because, you know, they were being investigated. Something had to happen, and it did.
Well, there was Pete, exactly right. In December of 2015, Hunter, who was sitting on the Burisma board, where he was paid $83,000 a month, which sounds really good, after a dinner, after a meeting, he and his friend went to the Four Seasons, wherever they were overseas. And then the phone rings a little bit later, and it's a Burisma guy, and he goes, hey, where are you guys? And they said, we're at the Four Seasons. Next thing you know,
having drinks outside.
Two Ukrainian guys show up and say, hey, Hunter, the boss wants to talk to you. I'm paraphrasing. A top Burisma executive wanted to talk to him.
The CEO.
And then said, can you call your dad? And they put him on speaker and introduced him. And Hunter said, essentially, Burisma needs our support. Of course, our support, it sounds like dad and everybody else. Who knows? We're connecting a lot of dots. But what Mr. Archer says is the vice president spoke. Whenever he spoke on the phone, Devin Archer said that the vice president, former vice president, now president, spoke in vague pleasantries, you know, like a politician would. But there he is. Devin Archer is in that image standing right next to Joe Biden. Joe Biden, of course, when Peter Doocy was out on the campaign trail, 4 years ago?
Yeah.
Nobody was under oath. So if Peter Doocy asked him a question, is he going to answer the truth? Well, now that we know that he obviously spoke to his son with his overseas business partners about his overseas business dealings, you know that this montage is full of fibs.
How many times have you ever spoken to your son about his overseas business dealings?
I've never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings.
Did Hunter Biden commit a crime? Have you spoken to your son, Mr. President-elect?
Proud of my son.
Are you confident your son Hunter did nothing wrong?
I'm confident.
Do you still think that the stories from the fall about your son Hunter were Russian disinformation at his smear campaign, like you said?
Yes, yes, yes. God love you, man. You're a one-horse pony.
So
never gets old.
One-horse pony still on paternity leave, back in 2 weeks.
Everyone's asking me. Okay, so Miranda Devine dives into this and what this really means. You know, why would the call be urgent? Why would they need to get the vice president on the phone? And she says 3 days later, Joe was due to fly, Joe Biden, to Kyiv to address the parliament in Ukraine. 10 weeks before the call, the U.S. ambassador gave a speech about corruption in Odessa and targeted the Burisma president by name. By then, the Ukrainian prosecutor was already hired, was already investigating the president of Burisma for corruption. That was the man who was trying to get him on the phone. Remember, it's urgent. A month later, the prosecutor is fired after Joe threatens to withhold $1 billion of your taxpayer dollars in aid to Ukraine.
And we know that happened because he bragged about it at the Council on Foreign Relations in a video where he said that's exactly what needed to happen.
So is it a coincidence?
Well, how many more dots need to be connected, Steve?
Yeah.
I mean, you got the WhatsApp message, you got the 1023, you got the whistleblowers, you've got all this work that's been done, the admissions from business partners, from Tony Bobulinski to Devin Archer.
Right.
How many more? And that's what a lot of people are asking. And Jim Jordan was on Maria's show, Sunday Morning Features, yesterday, talking about what stage of this are we in a potential investigation. Here's what he said.
What were the Bidens doing to get the money? I mean, 20 different shell companies, 9 different Bidens getting paid. What was the service? What was the product? What was the value they had? The only logical explanation here is it was access to then Vice President Biden, maybe even before that, Senator Biden. I think we're at the important final stage of this whole thing, which is who are you going to believe? The 2 whistleblowers whose testimony has been consistent, or the Garland-Biden Justice Department, which can't get their story straight? Speaker McCarthy said, if we have to go to an impeachment inquiry, we will in fact do that. It sure looks now, based on all this evidence that keeps piling up, based on what Senator Grassley released this week with the 1023 form, what we heard from the whistleblowers this past week, and the conflicting statements from the Justice Department, it sure looks like we're moving in that direction at a pretty quick pace.
So, he makes a great point, and that is who you're going to believe. We've seen these 2 whistleblowers, these IRS guys, and the IRS is scheduled to hire 20,000 more agents over the next 2 years.
Right.
I hope they are all like these 2 guys, because they got on the stand, and rather behind the table, and they told the truth as they remembered it, and they had memorialized it so it was accurate. We need to see the other people who made the decisions, because clearly, anytime an agent makes a suggestion, hey, look, we got the goods on this guy, let's charge him. And then the boss, in this case, David Weiss, the U.S. attorney for Delaware, he said, not going to do it. So you want to hear, okay, the IRS agents told us this. Now, Mr. Weiss, tell us why you don't think that rises to the level of a felony. So we need to know that. And obviously what they're trying to put together is, did the Biden family break any laws? Because that will be the undoing of the Biden family if it happened. If not, it didn't happen.
Yeah, well, their stories aren't changing, and that's what all the leaders were saying yesterday on the Sunday shows. The whistleblower stories aren't changing. The DOJ keeps changing their story.
And ultimately, this is not about Hunter Biden. It's not. It's about, we have a president of the United States who was potentially involved in all of these entanglements with foreign entities while he was vice president or in the interim, which could lead to complications or compromise as a president now. Like, that's a legitimate question you have to ask when your whole defense has been, I know nothing. I saw nothing.
Right.
I never talked to them. If that can be proven to be false, the whole deck of cards folds.
Right, exactly. I don't know how much Devin Archer is going to be able to testify to.
Interesting.
Because he said, I saw Hunter pull out his phone and put hey, look, it's the vice president. Talk to him. Say hi, Dad. A couple of dozen times. But Joe Biden, according to him, spoke in vague pleasantries. It's not like, yep, I'm gonna make sure that we fire that guy. So I don't know that they've got the smoking gun yet.
He might have spoken in pleasantries on that one phone call that he's talking about. But we do have it on tape of him bragging about firing the prosecutor, getting that prosecutor fired.
And they say the one guy says he's got, 17 tapes? 15 of Hunter, 2 of Joe? Do we know 19. If that's true? We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know.
17
But
of Hunter and
what if you hear the voice? Or what if you can actually pull out the bank records and show the dollar amounts, which a lot of people think they can?
We'll see. I mean, look, let the government investigate. If there's nothing there, there's nothing there. But if there is, we want to know about it. We want to know if our money was being exchanged for policy.
Has the president
making more money because of that?
Has Joe Biden been lying to Peter Doocy, that one-horse pony, or whatever, one-trick horse, or whatever we call it? I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.